Alright, so in this video, I'm going to explain the muscles of the anterior compartment of the thigh. This region is the front part of the upper leg, and it's between the hip joint and the knee joint. So imagining somebody standing in the anatomical position, which is what this model is showing right now. The anterior thigh is the area directly in front of the femur. And then some important landmarks to help us orientate ourselves are the ASIS and the AIIS on the pelvis, or the femur itself and the patellar. So first muscle is the iliacus. You can identify it because it sits directly on the iliac fossa right here, and its insertion is the lesser trochanter of the femur. Because the iliacus crosses anterior to the hip joint, when it contracts, it flexes the hip. It only crosses one joint, the hip, and it crosses on the anterior side. And this muscle is innervated by the femoral nerve. Next is the psoas major. You can identify this muscle as it is a long vertical muscle that runs along the lumbar spine and then travels down into the pelvis. Its origin is the lateral surface of the T12 through L1 vertebral bodies, and it inserts on the lesser trochanter of the femur. You can't see the femur, but it should be right here. Just like the iliacus, it flexes the hip because it crosses anterior to the hip joint. It crosses one joint, the hip, and it crosses on the anterior side as well. The psoas major is innervated by the ventral rami of L1 through L3. This makes it an exception in this region because it is not innervated by the femoral nerve that all of the other muscles are. The main component of the anterior compartment of the thigh is the knee extensor group, which would be called the quadriceps femoris. This includes four muscles, including the rectus femoris, the vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, and the vastus intermedius, which we can't see on this model, but it would be directly deep to the rectus femoris. So first off, the rectus femoris, on this model, it shows the right side. It is a straight central muscle running down the middle of the thigh. Its origin is the anterior inferior iliac spine, or the AIIS, and its insertion is the tibial tuberosity through the patellar tendon right here. Rectus femoris extends the knee because its tendon crosses anterior to the knee joint right here. It crosses two joints, the hip and the knee, and it crosses the hip anteriorly and the knee anteriorly as well. And this muscle is innervated by the femoral nerve. Next is the vastus lateralis, which is lateral to the femur. It is the large muscle on the lateral side of the thigh, and it originates from the greater trochanter and the lateral portion of the linea aspera. It inserts at the tibial tuberosity through the patellar tendon right here. And its action is knee extension as well because it crosses anterior to the knee joint. It crosses one joint, the knee, and it crosses on the anterior side. And this muscle is also innervated by the femoral nerve. Next is the vastus medialis, right here. This muscle is kind of like the teardrop-shaped muscle on the medial side of the thigh near the knee. Its origin is the medial portion of the linea aspera, and its insertion is the tibial tuberosity. It extends the knee because it crosses anterior to the knee joint and crosses one joint, the knee, on the anterior side. The vastus medialis is also innervated by the femoral nerve. Lastly, you can't see it on this model, but the vastus intermedius lies deep to the rectus femoris, right under this muscle. Its origin is the anterior shaft of the femur, and its insertion is the tibial tuberosity. It also extends the knee because it crosses anterior to the knee joint and crosses only one joint, the knee, on the anterior side. This muscle is also innervated by the femoral nerve. Next is the sartorius. The sartorius is right here, and it is a long, thin, diagonal strap-like muscle that runs from the lateral hip down to the medial knee. Its origin is the ASIS, and its insertion is on the medial tibia called the pes anserinus. One action of the sartorius is hip flexion because it crosses anterior to the hip joint and crosses two joints, the hip and the knee. It crosses the hip anteriorly and it crosses the knee posteriorly, which is why it can flex the knee. And this muscle is innervated by the femoral nerve. Last muscle is the tensor fasciae latae, or the TFL. Let's see. I'm not sure if you can see it on this model, but it'd be somewhere around here. Even though it's technically onto the lateral thigh. Oh, wait, here. Okay, I don't know where it is. Technically, it's on the lateral thigh. It's often grouped with the anterior thigh because of its function. You can identify it as a small muscle on the lateral hip that blends into the iliotibial band. Its origin is the ASIS and the iliac crest right here, and its insertion is the IT band, which continues down to the lateral tibia. One action of the TFL is hip flexion because it crosses anterior to the hip joint, it crosses one joint, the hip, and it crosses on the anterior thigh. The tensor fasciae latae is innervated by the superior gluteal nerve, which is another exception in this region because it is not innervated by the femoral nerve like the rest of the muscles. To summarize most of the innervations of the anterior thigh, most of them are innervated by the femoral nerve, and the exceptions to this are the psoas major, which is innervated by the ventral rami of L1 through L3, and the tensor fasciae latae, which is innervated by the superior gluteal nerve. So that completes my explanation of the muscles of the anterior compartment of the thigh. I covered how to orientate the region, how to identify the muscles, their origins and insertions, how their paths differ in their actions, and how many joints they cross, which sides of the joints they cross, and the innervations of the compartment, along with the exceptions with the psoas major and the TFL. Thank you.